All right, so we're going to begin talking about theorems. And so a theorem is a mathematical statement that can be proved. All right, so you're going to see a lot of these theorems throughout geometry. And then we're actually going to start our first proof here, albeit a fairly simple one, but our first proof. So let's look at a theorem, our first theorem here. If two angles are right angles, then they are congruent. So if two angles, and I'm going to denote angles using this kind of angle here, and then apostrophe s. If two angles are right angles, then they are congruent. And then I'm just going to put the congruent sign right here instead of writing out congruent. All right, so if two angles are right angles, then they are congruent. Simple enough. Let's see if we can prove this. So when we're starting out a proof, there's two columns that we want to make. We want to make our statements, and then we want to make our reasons. Okay, so these kind of work together to come to our conclusion. Okay, not the straightest lines in the world, but that's okay. All right, so what are our statements here? So we can let's look at what we need to show. We need to show that if there are two separate angles that are right angles, then they are congruent. So let's think of two angles. We have angle A and angle B. We know we are given the fact that both of them are right. Right? So our first statement could be that angle A is right. Okay? And this is given. This is a given statement. Okay? Another statement that we could say is if this is a right angle, well then the measure of angle A is 90 degrees. Right? So the measure of angle A is 90 degrees if angle A is right. And this is just because if an angle is right, its measure is 90 degrees. So right angle's measure is 90. Okay. And then next let's talk about our second angle, angle B. Angle B we're given is right. That's given. And then we have the same statement as before. The measure of angle B is 90 degrees. And we can just say, when you have something that the reason is the same as previously written, you could say same as 2, because number 2 is the same. And then lastly, because both their measures are 90 degrees, we can now conclude that angle A is congruent to angle B. And this is just because if two angles have the same measure, they're congruent. So two angles with same measure are congruent. All right, so there you go. That's our first proof. Pretty simple, but it gives you a general outline of what proofs really look like, and you have your statements, and you have the reasons why these statements are so, and they follow a very logical outline. They start with your given information, and then they logically move towards your conclusion. So we'll look at one other, actually, we're going to call it there. The next theorem that I wanted to look at was, it's fairly similar. It says that if two angles are straight angles, then they are congruent. Well, that's just essentially for the same reasons. We can prove it the same way. Straight angle is just the angle that exists on a straight line. So if I were to draw a straight line here, if that were straight, then this angle here, which is just 180 degrees. All right, and we'll stop there.